So yesterday I saw the Lego Movie. I actually managed to get like enough cash together, like exactly enough cash together to go see the movie, and I was very impressed with it. Like I've heard a lot of good things about it, and managed to stay away from spoilers and all that for about for well over a month before I got to see it. And it actually like when I think about it, and when last night I got to talking with with one of my friends about it, it kind of got me thinking about like how you judge a movie and like how in different ways. Because one thing that I noticed is that, being on Tumblr a lot, is like a lot of people tend to praise movies for addressing a certain subject. A certain subject that isn't normally addressed, at least not in certain cases or by certain people. And they praise it for addressing those certain topics alone, rather than thinking about how well they did it, like how well they addressed that problem, or how they've pulled off that kind of story. How this pertains to the Lego Movie is a bit more tangential, because in my mind I'm thinking about like the different things like pacing and things like that. But basically what I'm talking about is like one movie I always seem to come back to in terms of my thought, in terms of like talking about these sort of things, and the movie that I keep thinking about when talking about what I was just talking about in terms of like praising a movie for being a certain story rather than how well it does, is Brave. It's been years since I've seen Brave. I have not watched that movie since I saw it in the theater, like since that vlog with my high school friends. And the thing with Brave is that it felt like two different movies got scotch taped together. Like it felt like the first half of the movie was building up to something, and then the second half kind of went to a different direction with the story. And it was kind of odd. There was something unsettling about the pacing, about how well it was done. But on Tumblr, and also like when I go to visit my girlfriend and we hang out with her set of friends, and like when we watched Frozen and they were talking about like how good Brave was or something like that, like I basically bite my tongue and not give my thoughts, because why would you do that in that setting unless you really wanted to start a discussion? But people praising Brave for being a movie about being one of the few animated movies about the relationship between a mother and daughter. And I could understand that, because for some reason like after seeing that movie, I kind of got like a Freaky Friday vibe from that movie, like the remake one, like because like that one was also about like something magical happening to them and them learning to bond from there. The difference is that I think Freaky Friday, from what I can remember, actually set that up a lot more well. Like set up the relationship between the mother and daughter being more strange. While Brave, from what I can remember how Brave did it, Brave kind of set it up mostly from Merida's perspective. And not enough from the mother's perspective, Eleanor, I think. And that's the problem. Like when you're going to do a mother-daughter movie, it's you have to make the audience see both sides and agree with both sides, so that then the audience can agree with the middle ground. With Brave, it's easy to agree with Merida over the mother. Really easy. So when I expected like the film to kind of go into like Merida kind of like just running away and I don't know, living amongst the woods and like trying to find her place in the world. It would turn into a different beast entirely, and it's like, oh wait, it was about the mother and daughter. I did not catch that from the opening. I'm also thinking about this because I saw Lilo and Stitch I watched Lilo and Stitch last time I visited my girlfriend, and what I noticed with that one is that one's a lot better set up, because like they start off with like Stitch like with Stitch's origin, like him getting exiled and then heading towards Earth, and then they show the relationship between Lilo and Nani, and how they show both stories there, like Lilo's problem with fitting in, and Nani desperately trying to make ends meet so Lilo doesn't get taken away from child services. That movie does that a bit well, and even then the pacing for that one is a bit interesting. There's quite a few slow moments, really well done slow moments, and then the plot kind of picks back up again. Frozen, I've also noticed is that some people harp on Frozen for the pacing in certain ways, like kind of front load, and I think with Frozen, I think it's sort of a very steady pace. Like Frozen steadily goes through everything that it needs to do for that story. Would it have been a bit more interesting if there were like maybe more moments with like Anna and Elsa kind of addressing some of the problems from their childhoods, like the fact that Elsa never left her room, even to go to her parents' funeral, that kind of thing. And then I think it went through a steady enough pace where it was still enjoyable, and there was nothing overtly noticeably off about the pacing. The Lego Movie, in comparison, is, and I came up with this observation last night, it's exhaustingly good. And with the pacing, it finds a really good balance. Because all of the stuff is very, like a lot of the stuff is very quick and very the explanations are quick and clean and easy to understand. The action is really fast-paced and quick. It is a roller coaster of a ride, but it does find time to slow down for just a tad to let some certain emotional things sink in. And that's what's really good about it. And it's when it comes to the pacing, it's that it's so steady it's steady and fast a bit. And then about when it gets to the climax, I remember actually kind of feeling almost drained because of how much action was going on, how invested I really was in it. And it's and how a movie can actually kind of overload the senses for an hour and a half and then kind of drain you. It's pretty fascinating as how well it's done. And with the twist, it's one of those things where it's I'm very surprised that they actually went there. That's one of those things that's one of those things where it's that sounds like something that someone would come up with for a student project and then just kind of not do, for fear of becoming overly pretentious or doubting that they can pull it off. And then they do it, and then they do pull it off, and it's how the fuck did you get the funding for that? How did you get people to buy into that? That was wow. 9 minutes, and it's just been a weird discussion, and how that goes with pace. Pacing is important when it comes to movies, and screenwriters probably lose sleep over how they have to pull this shit off. Maybe, I don't know. Then again, they probably had schooling. So I'm not sure what final point I probably wasn't even building up to a final point. It's just kind of sharing my observations on films, especially animated films. I like animated films, and I like children's movies, because with children's movies, it's like there's a certain limitation that you have to do. That there's a certain limitation that you have to do, and it's more fun to watch a children's movie or a family movie push some boundaries than it is to watch any other, like the other types of movies to push boundaries, because other movies don't really have, like, a lot of the more adult-oriented live-action movies don't really have much in the way of boundaries. Aside from, like, it's like a lot of what's been done, a lot of what could have been done has been done, and the loss of that has been done on smaller budgets, or outside of the system. Animated family films are a bit more interesting, because, to me at least, because you could have there's so many different possible styles to go with, and so many possibilities in terms of to work out within the limitations that you have. So it is very fast. So it's kind of fascinating to see, like, what people can do in those sort of settings. And now the studio, and I don't know what I was building up to that. It's kind of interesting how now there's like more. There's probably going to be we're going to see a little bit more in terms of, like, the frame cutting CG animation. Like what they did in Wreck-It Ralph, where it's like they had the more or it's like they had or like people living in the more pixely, like living in, like, the Fix It Felix game, moved more like pixels, more like 8 bits. Or even in this movie, since, like, they're Legos, it's like they cut the frames to almost make it look like a stop motion movie at times. So my cat's whining. I don't know if you can hear that. And so I saw a teaser trailer for the upcoming CG Peanuts movie, and it's one of those. They keep the style of the animation from, like, all of the cartoons and all that, but it's CGI kind of made to look sort of resemble a more like of a pop-up 2D animation, and they do the frame cutting bit in terms of movement. And I think that's pretty interesting. I think that is, like, I have thought about like, what if you actually did do, like instead of doing Flash, like, what if you actually did do, like, two-dimensional models in a 3D. Like, what if you made, like, a two-dimensional movie within a two-dimensional animated movie within, like, the 3D CGI animation thing. That would be kind of interesting. And I have my own ideas for, like, stories that I would like to see animated, but probably wouldn't. And God, I'm just gonna end up talking for another minute. So that's sort of my. That's just kind of like a lot of the thoughts spewing out of my mouth at this point. No really overarching point to build up to, just kind of like sharing my observations in terms of, like, how kids movies can be done, or how well that can be done. As for, like, updates on, like, either reviews or just stuff in general, I still haven't finished the filming that's needed for the next review. There are some review ideas that I haven't fully worked on. I'm also trying to get a job, so at least that way I can get some sort of actual income. So at least that way I'm not, at least that way I can actually start acting like a adult rather than just kind of remaining a teenager for the rest of my life. That's kind of where things are. Thank you for watching, and I'll see what else I can come up with for videos when I actually use my time to think about them. Have a good day.